Welcome to Sib Spot. Our stories today are from Am I the A-Hole? Story 1 is by Throw R.A. Daughter's BF. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter's boyfriend to stop groping her? So I'm a 44 male and I have a 20-year-old daughter, Alexandra, and she has a boyfriend, Marcus, who's 21. When she first introduced us, I was happy and thought he was really nice and good for her. Today, my husband and I had my parents and my sister come over to our house. Alexandra was also there and invited Marcus over as well, which I was fine with. After Alexandra was done introducing Marcus to her grandparents and aunt, I noticed that Marcus seemed excessively showing my daughter affection, such as long drawn-out kissing, hugging her for long periods, and letting her lay sprawled out on him on the couch. It made me feel uncomfortable, but I let it slide, until I noticed Marcus was groping my daughter's rear while they kissed on one of my living room couches. I snapped by yelling, making them break away from each other, and said that Marcus needed to stop groping my daughter because it made me uncomfortable and it was disgusting to do in front of other people. There was silence until my daughter stood up and told me she was leaving in a quiet tone. I tried to stop her, but she left anyway with Marcus. Alexandra later texted me that I was an a-hole and a prude for embarrassing her and Marcus like that. I showed the text to my husband and he said that while I was right, I could have been nicer about it. I think a line has to be drawn somewhere as to what kind of public affection, even if it's in a private household, what kind of display of affection is appropriate. Kissing each other, not such a big deal. Hugging each other, not such a big deal. Putting your arm around somebody, that's fine. Nobody wants to see somebody touching somebody's rear or chest area while they're at a family get-together. If you're doing that at a family get-together, that's a bit much, especially in front of a parent. Are you the a-hole in this one? I'm going to have to agree with your husband on this. It really depends on what you said to Marcus, on your delivery of what you said to them. If you exploded on them, that makes you a bit of an a-hole too. They're not really full-on a-holes for what they were doing. They are thoughtless. That's inconsiderate. That does make people feel awkward. Too much touching of certain things. If you're at a private house with family, you don't touch certain things. Down in the comments by Harikiri238. Not the a-hole. They're old enough to know what's appropriate behavior in a public room with multiple family members over. You could have gone about it in a more gentle way, but I don't think it's necessary in the context. They're adults and they know what they were doing. You don't seem to have anything against either of them, just their behavior. Make sure she knows you support her and her relationship. You're just not okay with that level of PDA in a communal room. And underneath that by Heavy Sand 5228. The one thing I don't understand is why only Marcus was chastised but not her own daughter. They were both equal participants based on OP's post. I don't think daughter was touching Marcus's posterior or front realm at all. I don't see that happening in here. Tell him to stop. Tell him that's not appropriate. That, what you're doing right there, is not appropriate in front of family. Please don't do that in front of us. Our next story is by No Maybe 3163. Am I the a-hole for kicking my 72-year-old mother-in-law out of the house at night because she threw away my things? I'm a 36 female and I live with my husband, who's 41 male. I have a decent relationship with my mother-in-law compared to a lot of the other horror stories I hear from friends. She's quite sweet and warm. She is, however, a little over-controlling, overprotective. I'm not sure of the exact word, but she has very strong ideas about things and no sense of boundaries. For example, when she stays at our house, she takes over the kitchen completely and insists on cooking all of our meals. She cooks wonderfully, but she won't let me help her at all, and puts everything away in the wrong places, and then insists that her way is more logical. She only really comes for holidays, though, and I do like her a lot. So I don't mind putting up with these mild annoyances. I'm currently pregnant with our little girl who will be born in a few months. This is a miracle. I really didn't think it would happen, especially so late, but we got lucky. When my mother-in-law heard, she was super excited and said she would come over to help us get ready for the baby. She offered to stay for the next 6 months or so to help out, because my husband and I both work long hours, and it will be very hard to handle the baby on top of this. She is also pretty emotionally invested in this, because she truly sees herself as part of our family. She arrived a few days ago and set herself up, then she started with the cleaning. I like collecting things from garage sales and such. Things like sculptures and books and baskets, stuff a lot of people would consider utter junk. Our house is definitely overstuffed, but it's reasonably tidy and it doesn't seem like a hoarder's house or anything. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, likes everything surgically clean. Yesterday I came home from work to find the house like a war zone. She went through my cabinets and cleaned out everything she considered junk, and had apparently made several trips to Goodwill before I got home. I was really angry and asked her why she would ever do this. She said the house has to be tidy for the baby and that it would be dangerous for the baby to be in my cluttered house. Then she took the next huge bag of stuff and tried to walk out the door. I kind of lost it, and I told her she could get out right now. She was shocked that I was serious, and she said she doesn't have anywhere to go and it's so late. It was about 9:30. I booked her a hotel room and called a taxi. My husband came home an hour later, and when I told him what happened, he was furious with me. He says I disrespected his mom and was ungrateful for everything she's trying to do for us. Am I the a-hole? Your husband sounds like a mama's boy. His mom is right in all cases, and you are wrong. That's not okay in your partner, and you make sure that he knows that. It's one thing to clean and tidy up for a baby that's going to be coming. It's another thing entirely to discard things you judge to be dirty. Somebody's thing that they collected over years of going to garage sales and whatnot. It doesn't matter if it's somebody else's trash. It had value to you. You felt bonded to that stuff, and she just threw it out. You should go to Goodwill and ask if you can have all the stuff back that was brought in by her. You should take your mother-in-law to Goodwill with you, and you guys should go there and say, she brought in a bunch of stuff that was not supposed to be donated. We'd like to get it back. I'm sure, in case somebody has something like this happen. I wonder if there's ever been a situation where there was a significant other that just packed up somebody's stuff and took it all to Goodwill. I guarantee you they have a waiting period before they get rid of that stuff, or donate it out, or sell it, or whatever they do with it. Down in the comments by The Ranch Monster. Not the a-hole, but you may want to consider why she did that. Your house may actually be cluttered with junk and she was helping. I, of course, don't have, photos of your house in this previous state, but what she did was still an a-hole move. And immediately after that, by Dog Lover, that's a lot of numbers, 50707-1956. It doesn't make a difference. It's not her mother-in-law's problem to fix. There is nothing to fix. If she doesn't like the way the house is, then mother-in-law needs to stay out. The fact that you are insinuating that her house is messy or she's a hoarder is insane. It's her house. And when the baby comes, there's going to be even more messes, and again, it's not the mother-in-law's place to do or say anything about it. She is not the a-hole. Yeah, people definitely have different ideas of what's clean. And I'm sure this person's house was adequately clean for their standards. But like she said, her mother-in-law is surgically clean. And there's some people who would come into your house and be like, this is a mess. I need to just do everything to it. I need to throw away that and that. And you cannot do that to people. That's not okay to do. But OP, I definitely think you need to have a long conversation with your husband about how he needs to support you more and not just side with his mama on everything. And if he doesn't accept that, then he's not worthy of you. Our next story is by Farborder9524. Would I be the a-hole if I prioritized my oldest son's wishes above those of my wife and my younger children? I have a son who is now 14 from my first marriage. My first wife died when he was 5 and I remarried when he was 7. My wife and I met several months after I lost my wife. We did not enter into a romantic relationship until 16 months after my first wife passing. However, I know that from starting the romantic relationship to remarrying, we moved fast. I know it was too fast for my son, who was young at the time and struggled with the change. I did have him in therapy, and our relationship did not suffer because of it. He never stopped confiding in me and talking to me. But his relationship with my wife did suffer as a result. He is not close to her, and he's not close to his half-siblings. We have done family therapy, and my son had therapy to help him with the loss of his mom, as well as more recently to help him as he deals with my diagnosis. This all comes into play because I am terminally ill, and my son wants to go live with my late wife's father, brother, and his family once I'm gone. He has expressed this to me since the topic of what happens next became a reality we need to prepare for. My wife does not want my son to leave her and the kids after I die. I know my 2 daughters will miss my son a lot since they are old enough at 5 and 6 to remember him. My son told me he would not be happy staying with my wife and other children. He told me he would rather be with his real family. My wife is aware of the conversation my son and I are having over this topic. She spoke on behalf of herself and our kids. She believes I should tell my son he should stay with them since this is his home, and she believes it would spell the end of any sibling relationship if he can get away with never seeing our kids. She believes he could grow more fond of them in time. I spoke to my late wife's family and they would gladly have my son. They see him regularly as it is and have always been part of his life. I trust that they would take amazing care of my son, but I also believe my wife would. I believe my son would be happier with his maternal family. I told my wife this, and she told me she thought I would want my kids to be close after I'm gone. She thought I respected her as an equal parent in our household, and that I would take more than just what my oldest son wants into consideration. She asked me to really think if it would be best for him. I told her I've been thinking about that. She became angry and we fought about that. I hate fighting with her when I don't have long left. She told me I'm showing a lack of concern, of care for her and the kids, and accused me of being cold about this. Would I be the a-hole if I prioritize what my son wants and arrange for him to stay with his maternal family after I die? It's been 7 years, and he still is not a big fan of her and doesn't want to bond with the kids. He's 14. He's really kind of old enough to start to make his own decisions about where he wants to live. She's not his mother, and these other kids that you guys have are really not his direct siblings. If he wants to go live with them, she should be supportive of that. I don't understand why she wants to force him to be unhappy. He's been unhappy for 7 years. You married this new woman when he was 7, and now he's 14, and he still does not feel like this is home. He should absolutely be where he can be happy after you're gone. And she is being massively inconsiderate, saying, you should force him to stay here because it might affect my kids. It's almost as if she feels more like she needs to protect her kids from the emotional trauma of losing their older brother and maybe having somebody around the house to take care of those 2 kids. He should be where he's happy. He's already been devastated by the loss of one parent. He's going to be devastated soon by the loss of a second. That's actually really hard for anybody to deal with. And if there's a chance that he can find any happiness living with your late wife's father, he should be there. She has to get over it. I don't know why she feels the need to control it and force him to be there. Down in the comments by Dogs Reading Books, not the a-hole, your son is old enough to be able to have a say where he lives. It's a real possibility that he'll get resentful if you or your wife force him to live there when he doesn't want to. OP replied and said, it is, and it's possible the resentment could bubble over his younger siblings having their mom still when he lost both my wife and I before he was even 15. And finally, by Spare Imagination 132. Exactly, he's already lost his mom. Now he will lose his dad and his mom again to a certain extent. You are his only real contact with his mom and her memory. He doesn't like or trust his stepmother. Forcing him to stay with her could cause a downward spiral in him. I think it's not what's best for your son or the 5 or 6-year-olds, but what's best for her. Maybe she wants to use him to help parent the kids. That's what I was saying earlier. She had almost a decade to build a relationship with her stepson, and it never happened. Please do what is best for your son. Maybe talk with your wife's family and see if they can FaceTime or something. You just cannot ignore your son's feelings. Here, I agree. It really sucks that he's going to lose the both of you. It's a sad story and situation. Our stories for today have come to a close. Until we meet again, have a happy day.